What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Representing the Resin. My name is Jameson Baldwin, and today I'm joined by Arka and Connor of Slurmmm. Arka, Connor, thank you so much for taking the time, guys.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
I'm very excited to dive in. You guys have made the transition from the traditional market into the rec space here in Canada. There's a lot of stuff there that I want to touch on, a lot of experiences I want to hear about and pick your brain on certain points. But before we talk about what you've got going on now, I want to learn more about you two as individuals. So Connor, let's start with you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Cool, man. Yeah. So both from Ottawa. Grew up in a nice community called the Glebe. Really nice neighborhood, lots of educated people, real safe, very multicultural, very diverse. My mom's an architect. My dad's a psychologist. Very young in life, found martial arts is one of my passions. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo, black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is...
When did that start? Was that early childhood fascination? Was that something your father brought you into? Like, how'd you get into that?
Man, no lie. I just real young. I was into Dragon Ball Z, and I was like, I'm gonna learn to fly and shoot energy beams, and I'm gonna save the world. I think I was like 6 years old or something like that, and I just, I kept heckling my parents. And it's funny too because I didn't know what martial art I was getting myself into, so they like kind of took me to a bunch of different studios, and I didn't even choose. They just really vibed with the instructor, and I guess it seemed like I was having a good time, so we just rolled with it. So yeah, that was probably when I was about 6 years old, I'd say.
Oh wow, that's really cool. So like, other than martial arts, like were you into sports, or was it purely martial arts for you?
Yeah, so I was always into individual sports. My mom's from a traditional Chinese family, and we all really take to our tennis. So like even my grandma, she's 100 years old and she still catches all the matches. My mom always watches all the matches. So anytime I visit family, we'd always just kind of be forced to play tennis. But I guess it wasn't really forced for me, like I always enjoyed it. Never really took to the team sports as much, just kind of like to do my own thing and, rely on myself. It's my fault if I mess up, and, victory for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up, when did you become aware of cannabis?
So I smoked for my first time probably when I was like 11 or 12 years old. That's when I was honestly just like hanging out with a group of guys, and they just told me, like, I just came to meet up, and like, yo, we're trying to steal some weed from Jacob's older brother, Zach. And all I knew about weed was just, the school conferences that say don't smoke weed, but all my friends are pretty down, and like, I'm not going to be that guy. So, eventually we stole the weed, and his brother actually like found us and was like, what are you guys doing? Like, I'd happily smoke you out. So they just took us around back porch. We all smoked up. And I remember too, I didn't really care for it too much. Like the first time, and I was like, okay, this is cool. It is what it is. And then, to be honest, I feel like it was maybe 2 years later, just had my first heartbreak, and came back to the weed, and I was like, oh, this kind of numbs the pain from that, and like helps me kind of keep going forward. So, started to be like a bit of an on and off smoker starting from then. And then maybe kind of like end of high school, another heartbreak, same girl. I guess you never learn, but started to smoke kind of more seriously, kind of almost every day, coming to school stoned sometimes. And actually it's funny, I forget exactly how we got introduced, but just a mutual friend introduced me to Arka. And at this time, like my relationship with Arka was basically like, he was my weed dealer. He always had the good quads, and I feel like we always got along on that level, just in that a lot of my friends were down to smoke too, but like not the same, like I cared about the weed. I always wanted to get good weed. I was interested in new products, the hash, I remember Arca saying early on, he was just like, man, like you chill the same way I do. And I think what he meant is we're just, down to just sit there and just keep sessions. Good,
Did you like Arca right when you saw him? Were you intimidated by him? Like, what were your first thoughts when you met him?
Yeah, I mean, like I was a little intimidated because he was just, I guess, my weed dealer. But at the same time, I know Ark is super charismatic. Like to this day, I say that's his like best trait he's got going for him. Everywhere he goes, everyone just loves Arca. And so I've seen him to like move to different cities and just, I don't know, he does it, but just give him a quick month. He's like plugged in with all the good weed guys. He's selling weed to people. He's sessioning with people. He just makes it happen. So yeah, I think we got along right off the bat.
Yeah.
So how, like, what happened after high school? Were you guys quickly to work together, or did you go off and pursue your own career path first?
Yeah, I feel like we kind of went off on our own ways. So when I graduated from high school, I moved to Vancouver and I went to UBC. Took Bachelor of Science in Forestry. Dropped out the first year because of smoking weed, but
you brought BHO Tech back to Ottawa for the boys there.
Yeah, so I got something out of it. Like my first swing at extracts. Actually, funny. I lived in residence and I was like a building away from Wayne from Brindle Farms as well. So we kind of knew each other. We never really got that close at that time, but just kind of crazy to see. Now we're like working like across the street from each other pretty much. But yeah, I had just a mutual friend of me and Wayne's just showed me how to make BHO. Remember, we just sneak out in the forest behind residence and just open blast out there and just whip it up. And I think actually my buddy entered a competition on Toke City. Because Hashmaster Kush was given a free swing arm dab set to the guy who just sends the biggest BHO picture. So we all pitched and bought like a QP, a dry flower or something like that, and blasted it. And somehow we won the swing arm. So, huge day for us. But yeah, so I guess the weed kind of got me a little bit. The academics were struggling a bit, or I'll say I took more of a liking to the weed than I did to my program. So ended up moving back to Ottawa. Got back into the martial arts, just wanted to get myself, on the right track. I knew it was just something I've always done. It was good for me. And I just really believe too, you can only put so much time into things, and the time you put into things are what makes you, right? So I'm like, I've already put so much of my life into this. I just got to keep going. So I actually ended up managing MMA gym. It was the headquarters location of Ottawa Academy of Martial Arts in Ottawa. And funny, so I came back to, and I just came from BC. I've been smoking good weed, so obviously like Arca's the only guy I'm going to go to now that I'm back. So we're kind of
back then. Ottawa it was hard to get quads, man. It was hard to find quads, and like when you did find it, you paid whatever you could for it, but whatever they were asking.
Yeah, you got regulars, you got exos, and I knew I was just, I'll pay for the more expensive one. It's worth it.
100%. All right. So I've got questions for Arca about that, but I want to kind of take it back and start at the beginning with you, Arca, and learn a little bit more about you. So we know you also grew up in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Are also from the Glebe?
Not from the Glebe. I always grew up in like the burbs, Bell's Corners in Ottawa, in the Pean area. But I went to high school downtown. Like our high school was right beside City Hall, so that's basically where the lifestyle started for me. It was right when I went to like downtown high school, and flipped the first gram I bought for twice as much. Bought 2 grams, and that was the story. That was it. But just been moving and dealing in it since then. Dropped all the sports to really focus up on the weed. Even as a like 15, 16-year-old, I remember like bubble bags came onto the market around then. I don't know when. I guess this is 2005 or so. Yeah, 2005. And me and a homie bought like a half pound and fucking went into our buddy's garage in the middle of Canadian winter, minus 20 degrees. And whip that shit up. And I'll never forget it because our homie touched the water and then touched his eyes, and both his eyes fucking just sealed shut, puffed up. And I was like, don't touch water, kid. Okay, that's it. Yeah, and at that time, I remember like trying to sell the hash and be like, this is worth like 20, 30 bucks a gram, guys. Like, you want to buy it? And people were like, hell no, what the fuck? in Ottawa, we had like good hash plugs. We had the Lebanese, we had the Afghan, the Moroccan, close to the sources, let's say. And yeah, we just grew up in that.
Who put you on? Like, what was your first experience with cannabis?
My first experience was like Red Hot Chili Peppers concert when I was 13. High school kids next to us like saw us chilling and vibing. They handed us a joint. I can't say I was like fully down at first, you know, it was like a good experience. I didn't hop into it right away. Also took some events to transpire to, you know, like be like, oh, you know, this helps me get through.
Yeah.
Like that was around 15 is when I started blazing every day.
And that, and you were like, to deal with, you know, whatever you were dealing with at that time, you found, you know, cannabis to be that solution.
Absolutely. At that age, like it helped me focus and like, you know, like I guess I have ADHD, you know, like a lot of people I feel can not sympathize, but like also deal with similar things.
Yeah.
But like my thoughts are scattered. You know, my thoughts are everywhere, especially when things get bad. My thoughts are everywhere. And you know, just taking a little hit and helps me focus on like what's important, what's in front of me, stay present, you know. And that was it from the beginning. For sure.
So, I mean, you know, you say like 15 by 15, you're kind of like moving stuff out of your life to focus on, you know, this cannabis thing. And
yeah,
what are some of those first cultivars that you remember, those first packs coming in that really made an impression on you that, you know, set you on that journey to continue chasing that good?
Word. There are some at that time. It was probably like a lot of the greenhouse gear, Greenhouse Seed Co. Shout out to Arhan. That was the first strain I grew personally, Arhan's Haze.
I bought that pack, by the way.
Yeah. And you know, like I remember the packs that we would go well were like Super Silver Haze, Super Lemon Haze. Homies close by would grow some fire packs. Like I remember Blue Cheese, but this one, like I got this one Afghan Kush, which was like I guess like we'd never seen good Kush at that time, and like that was some fire Kush, and that was one of the things. Blueberry, DJ Shorts Blueberry.
And so how did it work? Did you have a connect in British Columbia and you were just had a direct line, or were you dealing with brokers? And like, how did you find your way to get the quads that Connor ended up seeking out for?
I guess just through smoking, man. You're in high school, cruising around, smoking with people. Like they have better weed. Oh, where'd you get her from? Like, let me sit down with that guy. You know, next guy got better weed. I'll sit down with that guy. Like, do business. That's basically how it was. Yeah.
And were you a flower guy or were you a hash?
Oh yeah, 100% flower. I guess like hash was introduced at a young age for sure. We were hot knifing the Afghan and Moroccan when we were like that age, high school. But mainly flower for sure. Yeah. We got the BC pack sometimes. We got like BC grapefruit. And recently like came full circle, actually funny. We met the crew in Victoria here that actually bred and brought it up, the BC grapefruit. And I got to be like, oh man, I remember those, like smoking that for the first time when I was 15, 16. It was kind of a full circle moment. Pretty cool.
That's really cool. So you talked about, or you just kind of mentioned that you were growing those hazes and that Connor had actually bought that pack. When did your cultivation journey begin? Like when did you grow your first plant?
Grew my first plant when I was 18. Moved out of my parents' house, and my girlfriend at the time, her mom was an old grower, and she was trying to give away her old hydro equipment. And she was like, "Hey, Arca, do you know like anybody that would want this stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know, I could probably figure it out. Let me take it off your hands." You know, blew out our first apartment immediately. You know, it got raided. Also, that same spot.
Unrelated though.
Unrelated.
Kept it tight on the weed.
Yeah, unrelated. Yeah, that's when it started. Just like I had a homie that kind of grew crop once or twice at that time, and you know he had a source of clones. and genetics, and we just linked up, and he kind of just showed me the way. And I felt like at that time, like you don't learn any other way. Like the internet wasn't really big for the scene at that time, I guess. And there's forums, old school forums, but like that was about it.
Were you active on those forums?
Not too active, no. Just Cruiser would read and follow everybody, but it's interesting to see, like now people are on Instagram. You see these guys that you used to like look up on, like I see.
I
Was it?
Mag.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, you just decide everybody's tech
Yeah.
right away. You can just see it real time. You know what
Yeah.
everyone's doing. You know what a proper setup looks like. Right?
Yeah.
So did you push forward into the cultivation, Arca? Was that
Yeah.
something that
I
you
guess so. Like that's where my passion lay. Like, grew some okay weed, but always wanted to grow better weed, because I would see better weed, and I always wanted to grow the best weed that I could. And like it doesn't always happen. There's a lot of lessons to learn along the way in growing, and it just, I don't know. Either I feel like if you're a grower and you've been in it for a while, like you're gonna get used to the losses, and either you're gonna give up and stop doing it, or you're just going to keep eating it to be better, I feel. And that's how, yeah. At least that's for the OG growers that I know,
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Did you start out with double-ended high-pressure sodium, like air-cooled ball? Like, what was your setup?
Yeah, that was it. Not even like that. It was like
air-cooled or
HID stuff.
Yeah.
Air-cooled with the tubes sucking out.
Yeah.
The bat wing hoods. Even like auxiliary lighting, we jacket from a construction site. Probably wasn't even a good like spectrum for the plants or anything, but we jacked in with like more light, I guess is good. That was some of my first grows, so we're learning still.
Oh yeah. So as those years went on, like what happened next for you? What was the next sort of moment in the evolution prior to Connor coming back and reconnecting with him? Was there another thing that happened while you were back in Ottawa?
Well, yeah, I guess like Connor came back, like I said earlier, he brought back BHO technology. So we started like blasting tubes, whipping up small batches for the homies, like contract work type of thing. And I was, not many people were smoking it, mainly just us because we wanted to get high as fuck.
We want to smoke good. That's what I'm saying. That's how we always got along, right? We're always just about that. I don't care if anyone else is going to smoke it, right? We're making it for us, and he's down the ride. So
yeah, and like we'd make it for other people, and at some point, like I actually introduced Connor to like one of my plugs, and he wanted to make BHO, and I was like, you guys should link up. This is like after he came back with it, and we've been doing it for a few years now. And like, you guys should link up and show them what's good. And, that resulted in Connor and the plug exploding and having third-degree burns all over their faces, all over their hands.
He got the worst of it.
Yeah. But he had some badass face scars, so he was okay about it. He didn't kill us, We're all good.
Move forward, kept working with him too.
Yeah.
He got over it really well.
That was the day we ended BHO, though. That was the last day either of us like blew a tube.
Yeah, that's actually not true. It's funny because I blew that up, but I still wasn't done. I felt like I owed that guy, so I actually like asked my buddy if I could just open blast in his backyard, and I finished the batch to try to salvage what I could. But that was the last time I ever did any blasting, so related to that event. But one more time after, yeah.
BHO career is over, though.
Yeah. I knew my career was over. Just had to get it done.
Wow.
And I guess to continue that, I was like just needed to get the fuck out of Ottawa at that time, facing some bullshit, and I need to hand off my business. And I was like, oh shit, this business is just gonna go and rot away. And then Connor kind of stepped up and was like, let me take over. And I was like, okay, if you want to do it, let's ride, So handed it off to him, got out of town, went to Banff to like chill in the mountains for a bit, snowboard for a year, and just like think about it before I moved to Vancouver to jump in like 100%, I guess, 1,000%.
That's okay. That's pretty cool. So Connor, were you taking over just sort of keeping the network alive, or were you actually taking over the cultivation?
Yeah, at that time it was just keeping the network alive pretty much. And like, to be honest, just kind of where I was at in life too, it was just like selfishly money motivated. I just, wasn't quite cutting it at the martial arts gym, and like knew it'd be hard to get where I wanted financially in life sticking around there. So just saw that opportunity, and I kind of saw that like Arca was, lost, not sure what to do with the whole business. And I'd sort of seen a little bit of the inside because he would always stash some of his stuff at our mutual friend's house. So I'd kind of see him coming in and out, and like sometimes help him with the odd thing. So I remember just telling him like, yo, I can do this. Like, I'm motivated. Like, is anyone else down? Because like I will outgrind them. Like, just show me what to do. Yeah, just full dropped everything. I was just riding along with him, just go meet all the people, like meet all the plugs.
Out of town and everything.
Like, yeah, just lay out the whole program and everything and how it works. Yeah.
And also the heads up, like I was escaping the lifestyle myself. Like at that time, it wasn't just weed,
Yeah.
I was escaping other things, and like I just needed to get the fuck out. And I was like, yo, like if you're gonna take over, you're gonna have some fun, but like plan an exit, bro. Like, that was like my leaving advice.
Yeah.
I left and then made it to Vancouver. And then at that point, I wanted to keep we were doing business still.
But how good a snowboarder did you get spending a year in Banff?
Oh man, it was like probably the best days of my life. Like, to be honest, I wish I could go back to that.
That was good, man. He taught me how to snowboard too. Yeah. His skills.
That's super nice. So you get your head straight, and you make the decision to continue west. And do you know people in Vancouver, or are you?
I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody at that point. I just landed, or actually, when I say anybody, like I had 2 friends there.
Sure.
I got a couch to crash on when I landed.
They're not connected to the industry by any means.
Yeah, no, nobody in particular.
The couch. Yeah.
Just the couch. Yeah. And
so what's your first move? You get to the city. What's your first move? Like what's next?
Find some plugs, to be honest. Like, this is the mecca of cannabis. Like, just my dream as an East Coast boy to like land in Vancouver. This is what I always wanted to do. This is what I decided to commit to. Started to find some plugs, like got a job at a dispensary, managing procurement, that type of things. Just started learning the ins and outs of the whole, how it used to work in the good old days of like the pre-legalization gray area dispensaries that were going on in Vancouver at the time. So that was like the golden days.
You got to, like, managing procurement at some of those dispensaries, like you got to put your hands and nose on a lot of packs on a weekly basis. Like, how many packs were you looking at in any given week?
Oh fuck, I don't know. I would literally sit at the shop like 60 hours a week, like 7 days a week, and just kind of like see anything come in. Like, I was the one testing the edibles, shatter. That's where I met Tim, my first dispensary. I remember him coming in with a giant beer, or Kind Selections. Sorry, Tim. but yeah, he had this huge beard and came in, and like he had the most fire BHO I'd ever tried at that time. I didn't know BHO could have terps like that. And I got to meet some good people in the game, and like get to like, it was getting to Vancouver was intimidating, let's say. Like, I didn't know what was what, and you gotta get to learn the lay of the land.
How long did that take? How long until you felt like you were part of that fabric of that community?
A year or 2, I guess. I was like front lines of it, meeting a lot of people, until I like kind of was like, oh shit, like I gotta do better than this, because like the spot I was working at wasn't great. Like, they would try to make me push PM packs. I would not. They'd be like, oh, why aren't these packs selling? I'm like, oh, I don't know, guys. Sorry, I don't know. Like, because I've been pushing the clean packs instead. But a lot of moral issues.
Yeah.
And like questionable ethics is what I was exposed to in the game. But then also, like, got to be able to work in some grows with some bigger grows than I'd ever have seen. at that point. You know, like I felt like I was in the green closet before I came to Vancouver, right? Like I didn't talk to anybody. Nobody knew that I was a grower, like, you know, other than like the people that would need to. No, like, you know, like Ottawa's petty as shit, and like you'd get robbed for things like that. Like, no joke. Like, and yeah, so like coming to Vancouver, people are more open, and you know, I got to work in grows, work in the dispensaries, and yeah, build.
What what was that like? What was the move? What was the idea that, you know, when you got to that point when you realized, you know, this isn't it, this isn't, I'm not happy doing what I'm doing and where I'm at right now. What was the next move for you?
That was that was it. Like basically, like I'd done it for a couple of years and was like, oh man, there's probably better people in this city to work with. You know, like at the time, Eden had some fire, and like they seemed to be doing it right. And like, you know, Sunrise was also there, THC was also there, like doing it proper. So I knew those guys were out there, and I just had to take a break from the scene of like frontline dispensary work, and we just focused more on like cultivation, consultation, like working crews, taking down stuff. And then I guess like at that point, I also had the connects to do my own thing, so I had an online dispensary at that time. Um,
That we set up together.
yeah, that we set up together actually, and that's what got Connor out to Vancouver in the end.
Yeah, so was Connor, so Connor's out over in Ottawa the whole time, and then you guys decide to connect on the dispensary?
Yeah.
On the online. Cool.
Yeah, I
Exactly,
guess like, well, there was a while, I guess initially you took your connects and like you felt like phyto extractions. I don't know if you remember those guys.
I remember Fido.
Yeah, I'm sorry to
Say
bring
the
them
name,
up, but
yeah.
I don't know, they're part of the story. So they're the first guys to do some branded thing. I'm not hating, you know,
No,
whatever,
it's true.
their thing. But yeah, they're the first guys to drop that like proper branded thing. So I remember at this point Arcus kind of trying to get out of the dispensary, so he started sort of like shopping things to me out east. So started to buy like a lot of packs from his growers, and phyto extractions especially started to really take off. And then we're just kind of realizing that Arkin knew all these guys through the dispensary, so like he could, you know, source a dispensary of his own. Like he knows how to do it. So we kind of thought that maybe we'd do just like a mail order dispensary. So we set that up. With I was still living in Ottawa at the time. Ark was in Vancouver. As we used like my lawyer in Ottawa and everything to set it up. And then I went out to visit Arca, and I'm trying to remember what year that was. I can't remember, but I just remember I just came out.
2015.
Yeah, something like that. I
Yeah.
came out to shop some packs, and then he took me out to Tofino. I remember we were just dabbing heavy. Like this is the first time really started to see dabs. You know, the titanium nails, scorch it till it's red hot. You know, kind of coming back into the scene. So we're just dabbing the whole way up, and just remember kind of driving around the island. It's my first time being there, and like I don't know, it just like hit me. I like hadn't even really grown at this point, but I was like, I want to grow weed on the island the rest of my life. Like this is it. So I kind of always like at that point, I just basically like complained to Arca like that he's like in Vancouver and was like, I'm like in Ottawa. This is bullshit, and like you know a lot of the same problems that are kind of ran away from. They're starting to creep up my alley. I'm starting to feel the pressure that he kind of explained that would inevitably happen to me. Um, and I guess we kind of had this idea to grow it one bigger. We wanted to supply ourselves. So we were going to start our own grow. We were going to start a food truck because at the time things were kind of gray markets. So we're like, the food truck's going to be our little like cover for the grow. So we're going to do vegetables on the scene too.
Yeah,
but,
like how what reason could a few dudes like that look like us have to do at a farm? You know, we we built this like I went to farm school at UBC agriculture, like at a UBC farm there, sustainable agriculture practicum, and like I did the class just to learn how to grow vegetables, and then you know we started this food truck, and I would source local organic produce from UBC farm, and we'd serve like Burmese food to Vancouver essentially. And you know we were about to get the farm. We were about to be like, okay, we're going all in on this. Like we can hide under the guise of this farm, this vegetable farm, and this food truck. You know, do a little wishy washy. You know, like, and legalization then came onto the table. Like legalization was there, and we were like, "Fuck!" Like, if this is actually what we want to do, we should probably drop everything else and do it legitimately.
Yeah, let me say respect to food truck owners too. That shit is hard, man. Like you got to really want to do it too. So I guess that's kind of what we were realizing. It's like this is a full-time passion, and we're just trying to use it as like a quick cover. And then legalization came along, and we're just like the food truck can go. So yeah, I think right about like before we set up the food truck, it was at that point where Arca was just like, "Yo, there's too many things going on in Vancouver. Like you should come out and help me," because the network was just my personal income. It wasn't like any part of the big picture. And I knew I wanted to move out to BC and be a grower in Vancouver Island. So I'm just like, cool, Arca's going to show me how to grow. We're just going to have the online dispensary. We're going to have our grow. We're going to have our food truck. So yeah, I guess that's what ended up bringing me out to Vancouver.
Mandalay Burmese Kitchen, still on Instagram if you want to check it out.
Yeah.
We used to make the fire street food.
That's cool. When did Slurmmm become an entity?
Not that long ago, man. Like, I guess at this point, 4 years ago. About 4 years ago. That was like Slurmmm. I guess like we can talk about what led up to that, but like Slurmmm was essentially for us, it was purely market research. Like at that point, we committed to the hash, and like built out our lab, like decided to wash everything that we grew, and that's when we dropped Slurmmm. When it started coming out fire, and Slurmmm was purely for market research. I'm like, I wonder if people are gonna like this. I wonder if people are going to be into what we're doing.
I want to back up. How did you transition into hash? Because we were just talking, you're going into the grow, but when Connor came out, the intention wasn't to freeze the material, right?
No. At that point, we didn't even have a grow, actually. Connor came out, and luckily his family had a spot, like a residential house that we could rent. And that was like I was working grows at that time, but then like I didn't have my own at the time, and he came out and we blew out the basement and started there.
We lived together, had like 2 businesses together, just did everything together. We had that basement down there. And I guess
expanded to 2 basements,
yeah, and then I guess at this point too, like I guess eventually when we concentrate on legalization, we ended up shutting down the online dispensary. And then we also shut down the food truck. And then, so pretty much so it comes back to Good Smoke, right? Like, because we don't have that dispensary anymore, all of Arca's plugs were like, yo, you got to buy like a pound of this flower. And like, we're just like, man, I just want some Percy's. So like, we're both picky. We're going to straight up Sunrise THC. Big shout out to both those guys. Love them both so much. But and honestly, we're just like same. It's like, what's the best shit? What's the most expensive thing here? What's the nicest thing here? So I feel like the one that really did it for both of us was the Heavenly Days Forum Cut live rosin. I think it was the most expensive thing in the shop. And I just remember right away, like actually we had pitched on like a funny little like those e-nail things. It might have even been the Brindle Farms. I think it was the Brindle Farms one. So shout out to Brindle Farms too. But yeah, so we're starting to get our temperature on point now. So things are really starting to ramp up. Hit the Forum Cut, and like right away is just completely different experience to what we're used to, right? Just the flavor, the layer of medication. Like I think we were both just like, this is it. This is what I want. And we always tailored our like productions and just our business plans towards like feeds us first, like what I want my Good Smoke. And then, if we can turn that into like a living so we can maintain that lifestyle, then cool.
Yeah. For me, like, I guess like to preface that, like I was working at Sunrise actually, Sunrise Wellness Foundation pre-legalization, and like the homies there would let me push my med packs through the doors. Like I was working the front line, the desk, talking to people every day, like selling weed every day, and like I loved it. It was the best, and like they would also let us push our packs through there, so that was helpful, and it was a great like they were a good crew too. Like I mentioned them earlier, and like I wasn't really down with the dispensary scene because I thought there was a lot of bullshit, but like I knew there were these good guys to work with, and I was able to link up with them. And it took Rob and Glob and Loud to feed me enough 710 labs, essentially. Like, just call me down from like the upstairs, call me to the basement, and be like, here, take this. And like it took he just fed me enough dabs that I was like, fuck, like this is it. Like this is what we have to do. And that around that time there was, like Connor said, he got turned by the form cut. And it was just that we just started like experimenting with our garden.
And so that experimentation, I know you mentioned earlier about using those bubble bags early in 2005 and then creating this hash and trying to move it and it not being that quick to move. Was this something where you were like, I have wrapped my head around this and we're going to do this ourselves, or did somebody show you guys how this was being done?
I guess I've been keeping up with it since like 2005 personally. Like I would always, every now and then I would like see a pack that had like a lot of trichomes falling off and be like, this might be good for hash, and like I'd wash it for Percy, still nobody would buy it. Like I kept up with it. And like it wasn't until freeze dryers came out that like I was kind of like, oh, like I think that like solves the problem. I was never good at air drying. Air drying's a true art and a skill, and I personally was never that great at it. and when freeze dryers came out, we were like, I for me it kind of clicked, and I just like was studying every day and the process and the tech and like keeping up with it, and I kind of like basically put together our first system, put together our first wash, and it turned out like it worked out. We still wash our personal meds in that same spot.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely took a big leap of faith because we were just we were growing for flower, and honestly, I think the way it happened, because I'm just thinking our first setup wasn't actually at that spot, so I forget who even came up with it, but I wasn't a hard sell on the rosin at the time because I knew it was the fire, so I think I was just like lying there and just kind of like I just run with numbers and everything. So I ran like a big business plan on if we rented another place for my family. And I'm just like, okay, and then it yields this percent and this and that and that. And like, I didn't really know a lot about the tech at this point. Like I had made bubble hash and like kind of got it. But, I went to Arca. I was like, can we do this? And he's like, yeah, I got this. I'm like, okay, man, like I'm trusting you. Like, don't screw me here. And we just went all in with that plan. So we got another spot. We set up another grow. We got a 10 by 10 shipping container. We just by hand like insulated it. We put in a cool bot with like an AC, and that was our first cold room, our first washroom. We got kind of lucky in that we were actually accidentally for flower growing a lot of washing strains already. It's kind of funny because we actually were running a whole bunch of like Oni seeds, like papaya cake, poontang pie, and all these, and hilariously just like lost the cuts before we even took them to the wash, and learned like a year down the road we're just like, oh my god, we just had bangers already. But
they had terps, but they didn't have that smack that we needed in our flower.
We both like that heavy gas, so
like, we need like that
in the flowers to get it.
And like right before we transitioned, we like got rid of our library of all these like potential dumpers. And we had like we could have had poontang pie back then, like 2016, 2015.
But yeah, so Arca was still at our original spot, and then me and my girlfriend moved into the new spot, and then popped a whole bunch of seeds. Ended up running pretty hard with the test tube Tropicana, and I think that was an educated guess at that time. Like I think Arca did kind of know what were some known yielders. Got the GMO in there, so obviously it's going to do something. But we were actually growing it for flower originally, and just took our good flower cut to hash one time, and ended up yielding well and just being unique fire.
At the time, for sure. At the time, terps are ever like evolving.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's crazy that it's really changed and really evolved really quick. But at the time it was something kind of unique, and Arcade ran with the branding play, so we jarred that little small batch up, slapped it out there, and it just took off.
Did Connor, did you take to cultivating? Like, was it your first true time ever cultivating a plant when you moved out to British Columbia?
Yeah, so again, like I had kind of been around it through our mutual friend who was a grower who introduced us at that spot where Arco would stash his stuff. My buddy was always growing there, and I remember they did like an outdoor crop on top of the roof. But that was part of it for me. I was like, I wanted to learn to grow too. So that was the part I was honestly probably the most excited about. So when I lived with Arca, that was kind of my first true introduction to like a real grow room, and just my first kind of couple of cycles. Definitely took off and really would start doing a lot of my own research. And then when we got the new spot, I was kind of running that on my own, but we were obviously still kind of talking about what's like the best system for the spot or whatever. But yeah, those crops were mostly me at the time.
So what happened? Like how many batches did you run till you got a freeze dryer? Like, did you?
We did it right the first time, and that's something I'll give Arca credit to, because like I come from a family of Asian accountants, so like I'm always running numbers and everything, but like that was something I was trying to skimp on because I'm looking at the program he's like showing us. I'm just like, man, this is so expensive. Like the cold room, the freeze dryer, we're like talking like 5,000-10,000 just quick bang 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 items. And that was when I remember he really held strong. He's like, no, if we're doing it like this or we're not doing it at all, there's just no point in doing it unless we're doing this. And I just trusted my homie, and he knew what he was talking about for sure.
Yeah, I just happen to know. Like I said, I'm a nerd myself. Like I kept up with it. I've been watching it, and like I had enough knowledge or whatever, seen enough shit to like get it right the first time, thankfully.
So were you so like at that time were you tell me about that first run, like how did that go?
Anxious. It always feels like gambling, I guess, when you dump a new strain. Like I don't know if any other hash producers can like feel that, but like you get a little rush, a little fluttery, like every time you dunk a new strain. Is it going to do nothing? Is it going to do something? Is it going to be great? Like you never know, I guess. Like, but that first one, like we first watched TTT,
I was definitely stressed, man, because like we had never done this before. We just like diverted a whole room to it. We froze it so it can't turn into flour. There's no going back. We're in this, right? It's got to turn into something. Like I don't even really know what I'm doing here. So I mean, and like Ark said, like to this day, that's one thing about hash. You just like to really have that like proper fire 10 out of 10 end product. People don't realize is like there's so many things that have to go right just all the way down the road. You have to check every single box, right? So just everything you do, there's a gamble that could make it not turn out for you, right? So like that's why I was saying I don't even think I understood how lucky we got to end up with the test tube, because honestly, after the test tube, we started to learn a lot about poor yields and things like that, right? Which I took it for granted because the test tube just killed it. And then, start washing things that yield 1%, or I remember once we ran 5,000 wet grams and we got 2 grams. We got 1 gram of 73, 1 gram of 45.
Yeah. And like in the early days, we linked up with Gas Gods too, like early days for Gas Gods as well. And like we were the first ones to dunk the gas mask Bubba, and like took a pretty big loss on it with the boys,
But I guess that was the thing too, is like we love the terps and we love just always smoking good new things. And it's kind of hard when you're a grower to just be constantly putting out new hash at the speed that you would like to kind of feed your own palate. Like I'm pretty spoiled. I like every dab I smoke in the day is something different, but we realized that, the best way to do that is to collab with other growers. We can still have our staples, but if I know somebody's good grower, good guy, he's got interesting strains, we check them out that might wash, kind of fast forwards that process of the evolution of finding all the new terps, right? So yeah, I guess that was something Arco was really good at. Again, through the dispensary scene, he had met a lot of good growers who were shopping their packs, so he would try to convince them to freeze a bit of it for us. it's funny because like I'm an easier sell. I've already smoked the rosin. Like we've been, running together for so long. Like sure, but when you're approaching these growers, like you want to make sure you're doing them right too. So like we do our best to know that it's gonna wash, but I'm sure it's like even if all your precursor tests go good, it could still not turn out great, or maybe it's like okay, but you didn't make the money you want. Or the other one for growers is if I'm convincing you to do this, I kind of want to make sure I can give you more than if you just took it to flower, right? Otherwise, like, what was this all worth?
Absolutely, yeah. So let me ask you, as this is all happening, you're gearing up for legalization, and like, what are your expectations and plans of your business model on October 17th, 2018? Because I know a lot of us had a preconception of what it was going to be, and I don't feel like it lined up as what it actually was for a lot of us.
100%. Yeah. I guess our first obstacle was like we booked a bank appointment October 18th, 2017 to open a fucking company bank account, and the banks didn't know what to do with us. They were like, "What? Like, we can't touch weed money. We can't touch a cannabis business." Like still, I think it's still like a struggle for a lot of the industry to like get good banking or like, yeah.
We were shocked though.
We were shocked though.
It's legal today, man. We set up our appointment for today.
You guys don't know it's October 18th, like and legalized yesterday. But like our first, like we weren't planning on extracting actually. Like we were just dabbling with it, smoking it, like whatever at the time, and we weren't going to just do processing like we do now. Like currently we're 40 hours a week in a lab doing processing at a facility, but we were originally trying to just get a micro cultivation license. We just want to do the micro, like stick to our passion or my passion of growing, and like make it happen that way. Our passion, yeah. Sorry, yeah. And like we were just trying to cultivate, and we were in the Lower Mainland trying to look for land, fighting the ALR in a lot of places. Like we literally couldn't find a spot that would allow us to do what we wanted to do.
For those people listening that aren't from British Columbia or Canada, can you just expand on what the ALR is and the issues around that?
Yeah, I guess ALR is the Agricultural Land Reserve, and they kind of govern a lot of the farmland in the area.
Yeah, at the time, I think the big one was that you couldn't pour new foundation for facilities. So you could use existing foundation, but that means that you kind of have to look for an ALR spot that has some kind of structure or something that's going to mimic exactly your shape of your grow.
Yeah. And like, we finally found a partner like that was down to use some land that we could build on. And even then, like it was a struggle. He was having zoning issues in Langley and Abbotsford, and like fighting the ALR through the city to be able to like even build out a facility. And yeah, it just wasn't happening. And we had been friends with Brindle Farms, who lives up in Souk. We currently do also live in Souk. That's where our LP facility is, but there's this whole area here that's zoned for the activities that we wanted, and there was an opportunity, so we got into a warehouse. And we were just like starting our cultivation part of it in that warehouse, had a bad falling out with a business partner, and kind of we're in souk and stuck a bit, And when I say stuck a bit, I mean like we just lost our big grow here. Our business just collapsed because of a bad partnership, and we weren't I wasn't sure what we were going to do, and it turned out like we as a micro cultivator, we built a contract with Old Growth Collective, and Old Growth Collective is the licensed facility that was going to run hash. So like we weren't going to do the extraction, but we had plans to like make hash with Old Growth Collective from our micro.
I guess,
and we were getting built at the same time. They weren't built out yet. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying to peel it back a little bit. So I guess when we were doing our gray market hash, though, we were always planning to build this facility. So it was kind of like our R&D for the legal market. So then I guess Brindle Farms had introduced us to that processor who was going to be processing their hash. And around this time, the TTT had worked out well. We found that warehouse, so we started setting up there. And we had signed the processing contract with Old Growth Collective.
So that when we started cultivating, that our packs would go there and they would be processed in the mainly hash.
Exactly. Yeah. So then when we ended up having the falling out with our other business partner that ended up losing us the spot, unfortunately, we had just still been talking back and forth with the guys from Old Growth Collective, and we all just kind of vibed, and they knew our reputation on the gray market, and we're looking for some kind of help setting up setting up the extraction scene there. So we consulted for them.
Yeah, we just started as consultants and like try to bring in tech and try to help them out. And then they, you know, at a certain point they were like, hey, you guys want to take Slurmmm online? You know, and we're like, let's go. And here we are, like a couple of years later, fighting a lot of fights to get here, but finally about to do our first drops.
That's fucking awesome. I think there's a lot to unpack here. I think that every large, medium, and small company in the Canadian space over the next 5 years is going to look to align or affiliate themselves with a true legacy brand that is known for, you know, some type of reputation. And you see it, you know, in California, the 5 biggest brands, I think 4 of them have direct ties to legacy roots that part of their brand ethos. So I think it's really interesting. I want to talk about, you know, were you surprised at how quickly this, specifically like the solventless space in the Canadian traditional market grew over a short period of time? I mean, I feel as though it really ramped up quickly, and brands like yourself were able to kind of ride that wave. And I mean, not ride it out of ease because you were putting out quality, but the consumer group and connoisseurship really grew at a quick pace. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The market's flooded right now with good rosin. If anything, like.
But back then, I mean, 2018, 2019, things were really, you know, picking up. So
yeah, things just started to pick up. I feel, yeah, at that point, I wasn't even sure. Like the market wasn't even that big at that time.
No.
I wasn't even sure if Slurmmm was going to do anything. You know, like I never expected to be here based on that. Essentially,
I think you just had less options back then too. So it's kind of like, you know, you walk into the dispensary, and it's like, let me see your flower. Oh, there's this whole shelf. You got all these different tiers, and like, even like, yo, I want to see your carts. Oh, all these different tiers. BHU, all these different tiers, and like, live rosin. What's this? There's a couple of little like Heavenly Days jars like creeping in the back, and like they're just sitting there by themselves. People like don't really even know, but you know, just as more options started to come out, people get a bit more into it. You have all these different flavors you can try, and they just kind of bring more of the community aspect into it as well.
It also doesn't surprise me. Rosin's the shit.
I mean, like, it is that too. You know,
hash rosin is the cleanest. Yeah. I mean, like I'm a believer. I try to kill people. Yeah.
No, I'm right there with you. So you guys have that unfortunate falling out with that ex-business partner. You connect with Old Growth, and then they offer to bring you in as a partner, or not as a partner, but bring the Slurmmm brand to the legal market. And a number of years later, you say, you know, we're here now bringing a product to market. So take us through that timeline of what that evolution looked like from that first meeting where, you know, we're bringing Slurmmm to market to today.
Oh, sure. That was like a year and a half ago when Slurmmm was like, when we got approached by OGC and they're like, yeah, they made us the offer. Like, hey, do you guys want to bring Slurmmm to market? And we're like, yeah, you know, like we're skeptical. We're like paranoid from the game. Like,
yeah, I guess kind of like they originally, kind of reached out and just like offered us the consulting job. They needed some help, but it
Consulting,
also
yeah.
sort of like was a reason for us to stick around because we sort of knew that there was some way we could help each other out. We just weren't 100% sure how it worked yet. And I forget how talks turned to that, but I guess we were just pumping Slurmmm really hard and just really crushed it. There's like, do you guys want to bring Slurmmm over? I think they saw the market value in it, and just the whole idea behind Old Growth Collective is that the slogan's old faces same fire. So like we're trying to really like build that legacy brand. So they saw like Slurmmm would be a really good way for them to do that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like originally we were just kind of in the facility, just kind of giving our 2 cents, helping set up.
Yeah, we weren't gonna even like bring Slurmmm at that point. We started working in consulting before Slurmmm was brought to the table, so we were just in there like just trying to help.
I think we were both just stoked to have a legal side hustle.
Yeah.
Something to put on paper while we're still making that good trap money.
For sure. So talk to me about the lab that you're currently working in.
Sure.
Which was the lab that I think you consulted to set up. What are you running in there?
We're running just the brootless wash system. We got 2 65-gallon wash vessels, usually doing a max of like 50 to 60 kgs wet, split between the 2 vessels. Got RO water system. We got a chiller for that RO tank. Got a big ice machine in there, and then just a couple of good old Harvest Right freeze dryers and stand-up freezer.
Yeah, a few of them to cover the ones that don't work.
Yeah, you got to have extras with Harvest Right, and you got to learn to be your own technician. I'll say we have a lab Conco. I haven't really played with it much yet, but
we're starting this week.
So yeah, we're gonna start messing around with it, and I don't really have anything bad to say about them. I just don't have that experience. So if somebody asks me to build them a system, I'm gonna go with something that I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just like stuck to what we knew, what we knew would work. Hand washing, like, and the presses that we started up on, like we have the Yetis, right? Which we
I guess we used to use the Sasquatch. It's the M2 is like the longer one, and our original one was the single bag press. I think it's the M1.
Yeah.
So we ended up going with the Yetis for the facility, just in case we wanted to bring in any sort of automation. But still, honestly, always prefer to, if I'm doing it, I'd rather just run the cycle manually because I feel like every press is different. So
we haven't even programmed.
I haven't programmed a single cycle into it yet.
So, like, are you running was the brootless from a cost perspective, or was it a preference of hand washing versus machine?
Yeah, preference of the hand washing.
Sure. Definitely hand washing for us. It's what we knew, and like still believe like for that just like really extra high-end connoisseur smoke, I believe in the hand washing if you know what you're doing, and so you really get that control and that feel of it.
That being said, somebody that knows how to wash hash can wash hash in a machine, no problem. I think do
you feel that there's a ceiling that commercial wash vessels cannot exceed that only a hand paddler can achieve still?
No, I'd say like at this point, no, but also I think it can, like, I think it's all in the tech and the individual running the machine versus hand paddling, like not saying that like you could still mess up in the hand paddling, right? You could still overbeat it.
Agreed.
You still don't know what you're looking for. It's all in the person running the device, whether it be hand washing or machine washing. But I personally like the dexterity and the closeness to the hand washing. So like we still lean towards that. Although, I don't feel opposed to dabbling with the machine at all.
Yeah. Do you have a preference on a paddle type?
Well, currently we use the pure pressure ones. They're food grade plastic with the holes. I like the whole ones.
Yeah. And what kind of bags do you run?
We go use Bolt bags.
The full mesh.
Sorry?
The full mesh?
Yeah, full mesh, or I guess like there's what is it? There's full mesh bolt bags. Yeah, the wash bag itself has like maybe like a rim like 8 to 10 inches, but yeah, the actual bags themselves, like the filter bags, are full mesh. Yeah.
We use Rosin Evolution sometimes too, just because at a legal facility, just because you have to change things between lots and whatnot sometimes. I feel like if we're just kind of cycling through bags, it's nice to have that option because I do believe in their quality as well. Just the bolt bags are just extra tough and durable. They'll last you a long time.
Yeah, you maybe need to replace those like every few months as opposed to every month. Like the rosin evolutions, if we're washing all month, like definitely want to replace the set after that month. But like with the bolt bags, you could run it a bit longer consistently. I'd say before they bust.
Do you guys have a school of thought when it comes to wash movement in the water and what's actually causing that gland to rupture from that excision point? Like there's the Frenchy idea that you only need to spin in one direction, and it's actually the suction from the vortex that is creating that negative that pressure for the gland to come off. And then there's the other school of thought that it's that change in direction, that turn and switch that is causing that. Have you put any thought into that?
Not too much, but I'm definitely like a multi-directional guy. I like to switch it up, switch hands, switch stance, switch direction. I feel like the varying directions and long time.
Are you changing your wash style very much from varietal to varietal, like to open bud structure to a closed bud structure?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I guess like open bud structure would drop heads more easily, and you don't want to bust up the biomass too hard, so you're definitely going more gentle, or we are at least.
Yeah.
Whereas like some stuff you got to get it out, and if you don't get it out, it's not gonna.
I feel like usually when we wash a cultivar for the first time, the first round we're gonna go extra light on it.
Yes.
And that's just because I don't know if it's really fragile and it's going to bust off a lot of plant material or unwanted contaminants. So maybe I could have gone harder, but that way I'm just being cautious, knowing for sure.
Yeah.
And then, the second round, I'm going to go a bit harder and then compare the colors of the hashes. You can kind of see if there's similar color on that second round where I went harder. Now I know when I run this cultivar again, I don't have to be so easy on the first round. Mm-hmm. But I always, if I'm running it for the first time, I do like to just be cautious and run it light, because again, like we said, so many things have to go right with the hash. I always like to run on the conservative side.
Yeah,
like every batch is different, whether it's the same cultivar that you've washed before, like that grower might not have grown it the exact same way, so that like new batch needs to be like they have the same, they'll do the similar things. It's not usually that off, but like I like the hand control and like judging as it goes.
What about your pre-soak? Do you change up your pre-soak times very much, or is that pretty standard?
We keep the pre-soak pretty standard. I think we usually do like an hour is our standard.
Half an hour, yeah. But like we're also in a guaranteed cold room. Like our room is a fridge.
Yeah,
that too. We're really blessed with our setup. In the gray market, it'd be hard to get something like that. So, it keeps consistent temperature, and we barely have to add any ice. Sometimes we try to run with no ice if possible. Even.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on iceless runs?
I personally, like some of our early runs, we found that like we would sometimes get green hued hash, but you couldn't taste the green in it. And I was kind of like, what's going on here? And I guess like I think it might have been Heavenly Days that was like maybe too much ice. And then I kind of like started being more considerate of where I placed the ice, how much ice was where, and like we got to a point where like we put the ice on the outside of the bag, because like I firmly believe that like we just need the temperature, right, not the physical ice itself.
When you say you put the ice on the outside of the bag, in the same vessel or in the reservoir?
So in the wash vessel, we'll have a wash bag that has the cannabis in it, and then on the outside, like between the vessel and the wash bag, That's where we place the ice,
Mhm.
so that there's not direct contact, not direct abrasion. For whatever reason, like that seemed to work for us. We didn't really have any issues with green going forward once we did that. But yeah,
Yeah, like that's it. I don't think that the ice is necessarily wrong,
no,
but like
no, sorry.
the whole reason for the ice is the water temperature, right? So if you can get the temperature without the ice, why wouldn't you? It's just an extra added just possibility in the equation.
And now experimenting with a room that is cold enough, that has an RO tank that is ran on a chiller. Like we know the water is like cold enough, so we've run some batches, and like I think it's cleaner product in the end.
Yeah.
For some reason, like when I say that, I mean yield from hash to rosin, I guess.
Yeah.
Or purity. Yeah.
Yep. There's some guys running one direction runs, and they're reporting negligible to maybe slightly minimal increases in yield, but what they are reporting is cleaner pulls, cleaner rosin, less particulate. So I think that there's something there to finding, is it a little bit of ice? Is it no ice? I think that that's really cool that you guys are making those observations and observing that. Are you guys running really low freeze dryer temps, or like what do you typically set your shelf temps at?
You want to dive into it?
Yeah, I guess like we kind of like recently had a thing of this. I personally like to run it as low as you can.
Longer, low and long is what you.
Yeah, low and longer. So we've been running, I think 35. I just think just because like you the freeze dryer freezes, you add a bit of heat, so like a little bit of moisture comes out, and then the vacuum ends up sucking it. But like when you're adding that heat and it's more like aggressive one shot, I worry that it kind of hurts your terps. Whereas like if you just do many small cycles that are hitting the heads less, I feel like it's safer, but I don't necessarily have any science to back that up.
Yeah.
But just when I first started learning, some of my mentors always told me that just lower the better. So
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's this delicate balance of commercialization to time in freeze dryers, amount of freeze dryer square footage that you have access to.
Yeah,
exactly.
In a perfect world, you'd run it at 5, and it would
just leave it for the week or something, right? I mean, fire first, and I just believe to make a really high quality product, it's not necessarily anything complicated. It's just checking all the boxes. Just every small little thing that you can do, that you can do, you do it, right?
Yeah.
If you learn that you can do something else to make it a little bit better, you do that too.
Yeah.
Guys are talking about recapturing terps out of the freeze dryer. Is that something that you guys are looking into at all?
Ooh, not looking into that. I always have this thought though, like there are some cultivars that when it hits the water, it pop, like the heads pop, and you see that oil layer on top. And like I've always thought about ways, like I guess like I figure a giant distillation setup to be able to like re-extract those terpenes from that hash water. That's as far as I've gotten. We're not practicing anything.
I don't know if it's the same thing, but I have been thinking because we make vape cartridges, right? So we cook our rosin into sauces, and you end up getting about like 10% loss when it's finally converted. And I think that loss is from volatile terpenes off gassing. But I kind of I keep trying to brainstorm some way if you could like have some kind of machine that like captures the off gassing, and then you can like inject it back into the sauce. So get more flavor and save that yield. But I haven't quite come to anything yet.
I don't know about the freeze dryer either. It's if it's working, I'm happy with it. I'm not.
Harvest right, man.
Like I'm not fooling around with my harvest rights. Like,
I'm not gonna tweak it now.
Well, that's the big thing. I mean, like, to learn new things, you got to risk some hash, unfortunately, and we've risked a lot of hash and taken some losses. But if you're counting on that batch, maybe not a good time to try a new cycle, right? Just go with a sure thing. And that's what we were talking about, like the hand paddling and the harvest rights is like, I know I can produce this level of product 100% with this system. So I'm going to do that for now, right? And then in my spare time, I play around and take my own losses to keep pushing.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on air dried melt versus freeze dried melt?
Ooh. Like I said earlier, I'm bad at it. Like I don't have the tech, but I have seen successful people close to me. Like Pineapple was on your show last Friday, and he's got it. You know, Van Gyptian's got it. Like
Kai's got it
dialed in. I can't say that I could do the same thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's just like there's always, you know, opinions one way or another, but you do see just kind of talking about the freeze dryer and the terpenes that, you know, you smell that water. It smells delicious.
There's something in there, yeah.
That's not just water.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think it's a skill. Like I've never seen it in person, somebody do a proper kind of air dry, but I've definitely smoked some stuff that's real proper. And just for myself, like I know I don't have that skill yet. So if I'm going to put something out, it's going to be select micron from a freeze dryer. Yeah. But you know, I'm definitely open to learning. Learning never stops, right?
Yeah, Pineapple's offered to teach me, and you know, we might dabble with it on a personal level at some point. But like I've had a lot of L's in that department, and I feel like that, like I guess the part of that in my mind, because I can't do it well, I just think I'm ruining the product by not freeze drying it. You know, not saying that Pineapple is going to ruin his product by air drying it, but I am going to, you know, I'm giving it a bad, I'm giving it a worse chance.
Yeah. It takes experience like any skill.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Okay, so the US, we see a lot of fresh press. We don't see a lot of fresh press in Canada. What are your guys' thoughts there? Is that something you think is going to take off? Are you fans? Where do your opinions lie?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like I do generally prefer cold cure, but it kind of bothers me the level to which the Canadian market demands cold cure, because I feel whatever the resin's going to do naturally is the best representation of that resin. So a lot of things get written off because they come out kind of drier, for example.
Not as wet as
or like you end up being forced to like add some heat to it to give it the consistency that is required, but it kind of changes the profile a little bit.
Not saying it's bad all the time either.
Yeah.
I guess like natural. Like I think we're both like kind of purists, slightly more purists, and like yeah, we could slush something and we still like it, but I think cold curing is like the maximum, not maximum, like it's the best point of it, and naturally cold curing it is the best version that I prefer the most. I guess like full bodied, like terpenes,
I guess it sort of just bothers me that everyone just demands the cold cured so much, because like you said, the US is a great example. Like we saw a lot of that melting of heads. Great event, by the way. It's not just all cold cure, and the like fresh press is good, man. So actually, even I feel like there was a while where I was kind of a little against fresh press, and then Pineapple shared his Pido cut with us. We did a batch of our living soil garden, and it was crazy. It's just completely shelf stable as fresh press. Left it out for like a month. It stayed the same, and
it doesn't cure.
Yeah, it was fire, man. Like it didn't have any of that kind of like planty fresh sort of taste at all. It just like crazy terps, really good effect. And I have to say, I mentioned earlier that every dab I take is a different one. That was honestly one of the first things that I hit like 2-3 back to back. Even just like having a full solid roster in my fridge, and just like going back to that Pido.
Yeah, I think that you need to hunt for your fresh press or your cold cure, and you're just like double, triple, rainbow lucky if your thing that you hunted for cold cure actually is good fresh press as well.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, you know, not even trying fresh press on pheno hunts, and then starting to listen to some guys talk and being like, oh my God, like I should be smoking this fresh press, and then trying the fresh press and being like, whoa, like this.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
And I always try.
We always
things
try
pretty
it,
much
like,
right off the
yeah.
press just to see.
Not at the lab, at the med spot.
Yeah.
At our personal
To
spot.
clarify, of course.
We're always dabbing off the press. You know, like we finish pressing one strain, we smash a dab of it, and like we've noticed that not every strain, like it's not the best representation of every strain. Well, most of them actually, like aren't represented well in fresh press. You know. But yeah, like you said, I agree. You'd have to hunt that fresh press strain, like that that's going to be shelf stable for longer, so that that person gets it in that fresh press form.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to I guess that's also supply chain issues with how we have to deliver it to people.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't want to be selling fresh press and it come.
Yeah, it comes as crumbled chalk. Nobody wants that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that when I ask all these US guys what the desire with fresh press is, it's basically that you have the optionality to take it whenever you want it. You're like, as an educated consumer, I can put this in my pocket for 2 hours and put it to where I want it, or I can take it right now, or I can fully whip it up. And for me, I'm very partial to cold cure. I think that for a number of reasons. There are, however, fresh presses that are just like incredible. There are guys who have hunted things for fresh press that they're meant to be fresh press, and you try them fresh press and cold cure, and you're like, no, that is meant to be fresh press. But I find those much fewer and farther between. But it's interesting how there's none in the Canadian market. And I honestly think that has to do with our geographic distance between each other. It's just like,
yeah, I think about that sometimes. Back in the day, you're like trying to ship something out to the East Coast, and it's like 30 degrees outside, and it's sitting in that mailbox in that mail truck, and you're just stressing, and your jars are upside down and smearing all over the place. And yeah you got fresh press in there, it's spoiled.
Oh yeah. What about melt? Where both of you guys are? Do you prefer rosin to melt, or where do you sit there?
I think we're both
I'm definitely a rosin boy.
I think we're rosin boys.
Although, okay,
overall,
I do appreciate really, really proper melt. And I guess it's kind of like back to the air dry thing. It's like, it's just, I admit that I'm not the best at it or the most plugged in, but I appreciate some proper melt when I get it. I just feel like a lot of people talk their melt up, and then you try it and you're just like, oh man, it's like,
it's hashy.
Yeah, it tastes like hash. But you do get those really proper ones, and you're like, okay, I got you. Respect.
For sure.
For my daily smoke, I'm usually going to the rosin.
Yeah. I mean, again, we test all the fresh press. We try to test flags of the melt. We try to separate the microns and see which one is going to be the best. And
that is true. We always test for full melt. We always test the fresh press, and we always let to see what it does naturally, and then test it then. Just want to know our resins, right? And you never know, like you said, you want to purpose breed, but maybe you pull something early and don't realize that it could have made a fire cold cure or something like that.
Yeah, we come back to cold cure ultimately ourselves.
Are you guys open to heat? Do you will you do jams? Will you do pens, or are you trying to?
For sure, yeah. Oh yeah, we got. We're definitely going to do pens. We're dropping pens on the market at some point soon. We were not opposed to it. We get that for each, there's pros and cons of everything, right?
Again, for myself, if it's my Percy jar, I got a little jar of Drago here from our garden, and it came out a little dry. I just left it dry and I just smoked it like that. But that being said, if I was trying to put it on the market, I would add some heat to it and make it into a cold cure, just because I know the market demands that, and they almost won't even look at it or take it seriously unless they see that, right? That's just what you need to do, unfortunately, to get them to try it.
Yeah. But also we'd going low and slow. Our heated cold cure is 100 degrees, so a slight bump, and we're just still taking the rosin to the same point that it would be at sitting on a shelf, but it just happens a bit faster and a bit of extra heat. So we're not opposed to it. And on a commercial scale, cold curing kilos which we are now, like we've got to like rush along the process a bit and like prepare things at, at
Scale,
a
right?
scale, yeah, in time frame, yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, I think we've all rushed a cold cure, and I haven't observed major differences
Yeah.
between a slightly rushed cold cure and a properly done
No,
cold
it's true, yeah.
I've just seen too much heat for too long. Definitely kind of, oxidizes it, gives it that sort of sour smell, and gets like kind of orange or whatever. Not that orange is necessarily bad, but when
And then-
compared to its original form.
And then I guess there's a lot of like tech for vape, right? People use different temperatures, but we have like we keep it at 150, and we have COAs that like show the consistency of like the terpenes basically don't get damaged at a certain point after a certain point. And if you keep it low and slow, and for us for vape sauce it's 150.
Yeah.
And we find that it doesn't damage it, doesn't burn it. It just takes time.
And I noticed like once they are fully cooked, that they don't progress further than that, or like degrade, kind of like Argo was saying. Yeah. So like, for example, we've put in a bunch of jars before, 2 were done, 1 wasn't, let's say. And then just because it's at the processor, if we're going to recook 1 jar, that whole lot has to go back in. So we recooked all of the jars, right? So my concern was these 2 that are done, are these going to degrade at all? And I should preface with saying we sent in a COA before so we could see what it looked like. And then we found that the 2 jars that were done, they didn't lose any more weight, which means that they didn't off gas, so they didn't process any further. And then B, once the other one was done, we took a representative sample and mixed it and saw that the sample came back same too. We hadn't degraded any of our.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you looking for bubbles, or how are you determining?
Yeah. So bubbles is like a first indicator. I find even when the bubbles are gone visually, sometimes what we like to do, because we're going to have to use a machine or something to draw and shoot it out. Sometimes when you draw it with a syringe, it ends up micro bubbling inside of your syringe. So that's an indicator that it's not done, even though visually it looks like the sauce is done. So that's usually our final test, is once it pulls and shoots out the way we want it to work, then we know it's ready.
Yeah, so we call it a syringe test. But because like I guess the idea is that if you're gonna run it through a syringe system, you want it like it'll act in the syringe how it'll act in the machine, the filling machine.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you're getting micro bubbles with just a syringe, then you're gonna get micro bubbles in the machine. You're not done the conversion, or not done enough of the conversion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, we've like learned this lesson through failures though, and yeah, now I think we've got it dialed in though.
Have you processed much like greenhouse and outdoor material, or are you primarily working with indoor material?
Well, sure. Yeah, our one of the big contracts that OGC has processed is going to be like all the Great Gardener Farms outdoor barb.
Yeah.
So we process like 2,500 kilos, or almost done processing 2,500 kilos of outdoor barb. And hand washed too, by the way. Hand washed. Good.
We ran our system to give it the best rendition,
Yeah. And now we have like on the Canadian market, we have the Great Gardener like temple balls, the Barber Bud temple balls, the Barber Bud live rosin vape, and also just the Barber Bud cold cure. And yeah, those are our biggest experiences with outdoor.
That's a serious experience with outdoor.
Yeah, for our own brand, I was gonna say mainly indoor, but we've only released indoor for Slurmmm Gray Market, and our first 2 legal drops are also indoor from Island Canna or Fresh Cannabis.
Awesome. We're seeing a big rise in resin mixing or blending, either pre-wash, post-wash, pre-press, post-press.
Yep.
Is that something you guys do? Is that something you guys are proponents of?
I have blended before. We aren't doing it for the legal market. I'm not
yet.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against it, really. I just think you should be careful of your blends, because it's kind of easy to turn your color wheel brown real quick, if you know what I mean. It just kind of gets a little muddled Frankenstein mess. I know some purists always like to, if they get that flavor, it needs to be like just from the plant, and I definitely have that appreciation. But at the same time, if I smoke something, it's fire. It's fire. That's it, right? So like, if it happened to be a blend, then that's okay, because I feel like I originally was sort of against it, and then started to come around that some of these things I was smoking were blends, and then my first impressions were I loved it. So do I not enjoy it now that somebody just told me it was a blend? And yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that's why you ask, because definitely some people have stigmas about it, right? But at the end of the day, if you enjoy it, like, what's wrong with that, right? I know, I guess maybe some people feel fooled, but
yeah, we don't like smoke. I think we mentioned a bit before that we're more purists. I don't know what like we I guess I prefer the strain itself more, I guess. But then also we've seen renditions of both mixed, and I'm not opposed, man. But yeah, I think there's a time and a place.
I think we both agree. If you're gonna blend, come correct with it, but like don't make some mess, because I will call me whatever. Like, I've definitely seen some things that have some pretty cool, funky names that I look up and I don't know what they are. And I'm like, this is papaya 100%. So I know they just have their banger papaya. They got something else that's like not moving, more bland or something, and then they're just mixing it in, calling something new. So like that's where I'm against the blending.
Yeah. It's one thing to blend to make something move. It's another thing to create something beautiful. I talk about it because we're seeing a lot of wins coming from blends. We're seeing a lot of contest entries where guys are going, oh, well, this is so good, but I could put like 10% of this in and just kind of kick it up with another dimension. And I think it's just really interesting where it's headed. And I like to get everybody's opinion, because I think we're soon headed to a place where, competitions there's going to be a blend category, and there's going to be a single strain category. Because right now we're consistently seeing those blends place high.
Yeah, man, how are they going to call people out though?
Yeah,
it'll be like doping.
It's an honor system. It's the same way, when somebody walks in and says, "I grew this and I washed this."
Look him in his eyes, and you're just like, "Oh, it's a blend, man."
It's happened at every competition, man. That's it's happened at every competition.
It's going to get cutthroat.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is like how long that lasts in the community, because you've got people like yourselves and myself who, we don't just make our living here, but we gain our self-worth. Our community is here, and so those people it's just short-sighted, because I see those people do that, and I'm like, man, that's not gonna pay off for you down the road, because I know about it now.
Yeah, you get found out once and you're out of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to talk about yields, hash yields. It's something that I bring up on every show. It's something I talk to everybody about, and just see if you've given a lot of thought into it. I don't really feel as though we're such a passionate community. A lot of us have dedicated our entire lives to not just the plant but resin, and we don't have a proper way to compare apples to apples when we're talking about the plants that we're growing and the yields that we're getting. Is that something that you've put much thought into?
Yeah, I think it should be standardized more, because like you have to ask more specific questions when you're asking somebody about yield. Like is it from rosin?
Yeah.
From hash? Is it good
micron range?
All spectrums?
Yeah.
Like so like if anybody says a number, like those are the questions that pop into my head. Those are kind of what I want to know, like, because otherwise it's irrelevant, I guess, at a certain point. If you're just saying I have 5%, but you mean like, but then you have like
half of it's food grade.
In food grade, yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah,
it needs to be standardized, and it just shouldn't be a flex. But for me personally, when I'm talking about wet biomass to good spectrum bubble hash.
Yeah, that's how like we internally talk about it with each other and within our circle, I guess.
It's
but
rosin.
There's a lot of other conversions that need to be made from that point.
Yeah, it's rosin off the press. So I mean, ultimately, you'd look at it rosin per square foot of cultivation table.
Or to be honest, maybe I'm like shaking things up. I think of it in terms of wet to bubble hash, and then I will separately talk about my press yields, just because I think it kind of tells people about the resin as well, knowing how it yielded on the press.
Sure,
So kind of know what that result is, but I share both of those numbers.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like at least internally, not opposed to anything else. It's all. I just think that it needs to be understood that some of these numbers that people are dropping are maybe not specifically what you think.
Yeah, it needs to be standardized. And then I always like, I don't know, follow me, but when people say they're getting like 10% yields, like wet to dry is like 5 to 1, right? So if you extrapolate that, we're talking your dry flower is 50% heads. Like that doesn't really add up to me, but I don't know.
Let's talk about that, Connor. Like, do you think that there's much more room? When you look at GMO, do you feel as though there's room in breeding to yield more, or just to your point, do you feel as though we've more or less maxed this plant out and now we're looking at flavor profiles?
I personally think we're starting to get to some of the upper limits here. And I mean, if we can push it, I don't think we're going to be pushing it exponentially or by like huge number points. Maybe something that was found is up like a 0.1% on a good batch or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there just has to be a limit because, like I said, if you were claiming 20%, that means that your dry nug is 100% heads, right? Like that's just not even possible. So 20% would be the absolute maximum yield that it could possibly be, and again, that's just a full nugget head. So
I was just gonna say, like, I'm in the mindset right now that like yield I don't think matters that much. Like when I say that much, I mean like the ones that yield higher, in my experience, maybe yes, they dropped heads, but like, are there enough terps in there? Like, is it gonna smack enough? Like, yes, it's THC. It's like high in THC, but is it gonna be the same quality? Like, I kind of want a terpier, lower yielding resin, if that makes sense. Only from experience.
Yeah, you've never heard somebody say I had my biggest pull and my best resin.
Yeah, I do feel like some of those funkier, more interesting ones really come in at like the 2 to 3% sometimes, and you have to make that tough call of if you're going to keep it around just for the flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you guys' thoughts on dabbing and dab culture? Like, do you think that it's going to take off exponentially over the next few years, or do you feel as though the growth in our segment of the industry is going to be realized more through like vape pens and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's to be dominated by vape pens, but I honestly think the solventless carts are going to be a great way to introduce some people who are a little more skeptical into the whole dabbing scene. Because just from experience, I've handed people who don't really care too much about their smoke and are just vape pen kind of people a solventless cart, and it's just kind of like blown their mind, and it sort of opens their eyes. As like, I have a lot of friends who don't dab at all, and we go on like camping trips, and I'm just torching up a huge rig, and everyone's just like, what is this? But then I give them the cart, and they're like, oh, this is the exact same thing. It's like, yeah, man, I'm not crazy. Like, do you want to try this? Usually I step them with Puffco and then that. But like, I've opened a lot of eyes with just like the solventless cart. So I don't know that the cart's necessarily going to like dominate and make other dabbing obsolete, but I definitely think we're going to get more people dabbing, and it helps build the culture as a whole.
I think it's a gateway tool in ways.
Yeah, it just lowers the barrier of entry for people too, right? Because it's like, all right, I'm just going to commit here and get a rig and a torch. And, oh, my buddy said if I hit it at the wrong temperature, it won't work. So now I need a dab right too. And you're just like, oh, it's $100 a gram. No one told me that. So just makes it easier for people, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that, part of me wants the torch culture to explode and thrive, but and part of me dies a little bit every time I know another one of those like new Puffco
the proxies. Yeah.
The proxy attachment. Anytime I see a proxy attachment go onto like a Usheen or like some heady feeling.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking that too. Yeah.
It hurts me in my soul. But yeah, it's the future, and it's what's happening. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see like where the culture goes and what gets adopted and what's more widely held. One more question about the lab before we move on is, where do you think the future of, like, do you feel as though there's a lot of innovation that's going to take place in solventless extraction over the next 3 years, or do you feel that it's going to remain somewhat the same as what we're looking at right now with the equipment and the methodology?
I think it's still changing really rapidly. Like, things happened really fast just to get to the point where we are now, and there's still a lot of holes in some of the equipment. I keep ragging on them, but harvest right. I'd like to see, like, somebody's gonna make a really proper hash specific dryer one of these days. We're getting
have the
there.
customer service.
Yeah, and again, like I said, like, even I was kind of racking my brain about like the off gassing and the vape cooking, something to collect that. Like, I think there's still just a lot of room to evolve, and just as people start to make more hash, we start to run into more things. But I feel like almost every day I see something new coming out. We got like the resin dial now for doing like your more proper shake tests, or even that rosin evolution like drill bit thing for whipping up your hash. It's like,
Yeah, we both got carpal tunnel from whipping up jars.
yeah, as I say, it wasn't too long ago. I'm just like, oh, my elbow, and it's almost like the next day that thing pops up. Maybe Google's creeping me or something. But yeah, I still think we got a lot of a really long way to go, and I'm excited about it. And hope to keep up.
Something that we've both been like kind of watching and following is directional freezing. I guess in terms of curing the product, seems interesting. Still watching, still trying to understand and learn what
in relation to shelf stability.
Yeah, I guess so, and consistency.
Yeah,
as far as like a consistent shelf stable product delivered to the consumer.
We haven't seen it widely adopted by anybody since Solventless Mind posted it. So I it would be interesting to know, application, like value application to time and energy input. But I think it's still a really cool concept, something that I haven't personally explored, but I know I've talked about with a few people.
We're talking about it too, and like we're too scared to throw a whole jar into the freezer at that state, and we're not sure if mason jars are the right vessel for that.
Yeah, it's another way to play with hash, and it's something I just still want to get to know. I just kind of look at it like in basketball, some of the best players, they have all these crazy trick shots, but you don't pull it out in a game. You go to your bread and butter, right? But it's like it helps you push your skill level, right? Just knowing a bit of everything and how it works, even if it's the new thing or not, it just kind of teaches you more about how the resin reacts, and it's always going to help you in the hash game, right?
100%. There's definitely a couple of people I think I could put you in touch with that could like help you guys feel more comfortable doing some experiments.
Cool. Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
That would be dope.
So I wanted to ask, I know we've kind of touched on your journey with into the legal space, but I didn't get to ask, what was the hardest part? What was the worst part about that whole transition over these last 3 or 4 years?
Oh, it's hard to say. I feel like it all just kind of spirals together into like one big weight on your shoulders. But I would honestly say when we had the falling out with our business partner that lost us the facility there, just because we've been building up so much steam and catching a lot of lucky W's on the way up, and then just almost kind of back to nothing. Didn't know what to do. Had piled a bunch of investors together, and like the buddy basically just kind of lost all the money. So we owe a bunch of people money, and I believe nobody's perfect. We always make mistakes, but you always got to make it right. So for me, it just like, it wasn't a question. Like, I was going to pay all these people back. So we just doubled down, grinded, didn't put any profit in our pockets, and just paid everyone back, and just knew that we were going to keep going. Like, I remember calling Arca actually, because he lived in Souk and I live in Vancouver, and just like, yo man, so I'm still down to ride. Like, what are you saying? He's like, I'm so glad you called and said that, because like I am too. We both just like agreed. It's like,
Yeah.
I know I learned this from martial arts too, but like when things are tough, you literally have two options, right? You're gonna keep going or you're gonna quit. And we talked about it, it's like, I'm never gonna quit. Like no matter how many times I get beat down to nothing, I'm gonna like set up the best setup I can with my means, even if I get beat down to like one plant on a friggin' balcony and I gotta come back from there, like I'm gonna do it. And like
Yeah.
maybe that's not a good thing, but we both realize like we're both there and support each other in that. And
The commitment was made a long time ago
yeah,
to it.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, rising out of that was definitely I'd say the hardest part.
I guess like for me, I would say there's an ongoing fight against the corporate agenda of mids. Okay, it's ongoing. Like we're still fighting it today. Like a lot of the time, we want to quit. We want to throw in our hat and like be like, "Here, Slurm's yours, guys. Like, good luck," or like whatever. But when I say that, I we work with some good people. That understanding comes, and everybody's willing to learn the lessons. But like sometimes some things are suggested that go towards like overproducing mids, for example. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to flood any market like in that sense. Like it's a constant fight from every level, from the jars that we're putting the product into to the QA, the quality assurance person that you have to fight to like be able to do this one little step of the process that is going to make that difference. It's a constant battle, and
yeah,
I
like
feel like we're still fighting
it's
it.
sort of because like
Yeah.
at current state, for us to get started, we need like we're the industry people, but we do need some suits to help us. Like I know how to make good hash, but I don't necessarily know Health Canada compliance, right?
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, these guys don't even know what hash is. They see the process, and they're kind of blown away. So sometimes you end up having to sort of fight over things that guys like you and I seems just kind of obvious, like don't irradiate the hash, but like they don't understand why, right? They're like the quality assurance, all that matters for them is passing COAs and things being Health Canada approved. So they're asking me, why would I take the risk? We should just send it to irradiate, and we have to really put our foot down for things like that, right? But it gets kind of tiring sometimes. But you can only change things from the inside. You can't just sit on the sidelines kind of whining, right? So you just got to be patient and just try to educate everyone that you come into contact with, basically.
And I commend you guys. I commend you guys for that, because when you look down south, when the states legalized, that did legalize, while the country remained federally a Schedule 1 narcotic. It was the legacy dudes that rushed in, that moved into those quasi-legal, state legal positions, and that wasn't the case in Canada. It was years before we really started to get a presence of people who actually were connected to the plant and knew what was going on. And it is a constant battle, like Arco was saying, with the fight against corporate mids, because that's what it is. It's oh, well, let's just cut these corners and make these widgets faster, and we'll make more widgets.
Like, let's release product just on COAs.
Yeah.
Like, no, we got to burn every single flower we want to release. You guys are ridiculous. Like, how do you not understand this? Let's go fucking figure out a way to try it,
Yeah.
Or like, how are we going to drop a product without knowing how it hits the nail?
Yeah, you can't drop a fine wine and charge a certain price if you haven't tasted it first, right? You can't just pull a thing like statistically fire. You don't know. And then, we're trying to have a high tier product here. I have to know what I'm putting on the market, right? You can't just be blind sending things.
Yeah. So I mean, taking all this into account, what you've learned, what you guys have been through, both in the traditional space and moving into the legal market, like what advice do you have for your peers who are looking to follow in your footsteps and have and want to bring their traditional market brands into the legal space? Like, what advice do you guys have for those people?
I think you just got to be patient, and you just got to be ready to deal with a lot of different people that you didn't think you're going to. So I feel a lot of traditional cannabis industry people aren't really great at talking to people who aren't from the cannabis industry. And unfortunately, a lot of those people are going to have your life in their hands at some point. So you got to, instead of like pushing them away and being like, it's us versus the suits, you kind of just, again, you got to build good relationships with them and you have to educate them, right? Because if you just, again, you complain from the sidelines, you're not changing anything. You have to find solutions.
What about you, Arca?
Sorry, I just blanked out there. What was the question?
The advice for like
the advice. Okay.
Transition, like legacy guys are following in your footsteps, going, I want to be just like Slurmmm, and I want to come, follow that path. What advice do you have for them to give them a heads up or make it easier for them than it was for you?
I guess keep pushing for what you think is right. I guess keep pushing, keep like owning your craft, and keep pushing. Like if we can do it, like if we can do this, like you can work, you can get there. Like just keep on working at it, and manifest that shit, build it every day, think about it, eat it, live it, sleep it, whatever. That's it.
Man, that's good.
Right. Well, it's funny because you asked like what was the toughest parts. And I was like, oh, it was getting out that hole. And then Arca's like, oh, the toughest part was right after the hole. So like you can see
the whole thing.
Exactly. It doesn't get easy at any point, but like we were saying, if you have the passion for it, like we're gonna keep going no matter what. So yeah, let's make things happen, right?
So before I kind of start wrapping it up with the questions, I want to learn a little bit more about what you guys have planned coming to the market. Like, can you talk to me a little bit about what you're currently running and what's on deck to come into the market in what provinces?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, we can a bit. We're excited for the next year. We got a lot of sweet collaborations lined up. It's taken a while to meet the growers that we've met to be able to run consistent program with the proper genetics and the understanding of it to like implement a fresh freezing program in their facility, for example, and like it took a year, but like we have a handful of growers, real OGs in the game that like we are looking forward to showcasing their flower.
Yeah, so that being said, I think first up we're doing a fresh cannabis collab. They're up in Saanich, grow really proper.
Shout out Travis.
Yeah, shout out Travis. They're doing some really top flower. We just got them to switch over to a solventless program a little bit with us. So we have Gas Face and Georgia Punch by those guys.
Dropping next week.
Yep, dropping next week. We just packed it all up. I know for sure going to be available at THC and Sunrise.
We have same guys. Yeah. Not to cut you off, same guys have some. Fresh has some genetics coming down that we're testing. Donut Crasher, which is a cross he did himself, and then Divorce Cakes cross Skittles, I think, in the new year. Just a lot of different terps, and we have some friends in the Okanagan that are coming online with some Living Soil Fire. Also, OGs have a great genetic library. Do good work with them.
Say hopefully fingers crossed some of our legacy market growers, they've been working really hard to get a spot going and dealing with all the same legal BS that we have. They're supposed to be launched maybe like a year or so ago, but hoping to bring them online with some of our flagship strains as well. Hopefully just bring some of the exact same legacy market fires straight to the legal market.
Exactly, same growers that we were working with on the legacy side.
That's awesome.
Transitioning with our genetics, so we're excited for that. We have a Loki. We have a small drop of peanut butter souffle, pending name issues, but that's a collaboration with Coast Mountain Cannabis, and we're excited because they're great people. They grow living soil. They
awesome,
organic certified, and we're hoping to get the first organic certified hash on the market, rosin on the market. That'll be exciting, but just more terps, man, more terps, and trying to spread the gospel of the good quality rosins.
Sorry, go ahead, Connor.
I'll just say high grade and torches, man. Keep it alive.
Let's go. High grade and torches. I love that. Let's get that on a t-shirt. So let's, you know, you're getting ready, you're getting things going, and what is your path to market? Because the biggest issue with putting on all these small growers is that you've got to change your SKUs. And
Yeah.
how do you navigate around that so that you're able to continually change it up and get it out to the consuming rec market?
Yeah, so I think the big thing we just try to do what we did in the legacy market. That's, you know, make a lot of connections with a lot of growers and do a lot of craft small drops, and then just have a couple of flagship strains that you can lean on as well. But yeah, I agree.
Trying not to overproduce.
Yeah, you got to be careful because you know, the facility has quite a bit of potential, and we all know the Davin market is not that big, and or in terms of a chunk as the full cannabis consumption market, and then live rosin smokers even a smaller chunk of that. So you kind of have to be realistic about what your audience is. So yeah, I think the play is to just really diversify flavors so you can keep hitting those same guys, you know.
And diversify flavors, try to create exciting things that, like, I want to be able to make a product that I want to go to the store for, you know. Like, I want to try to bring over the guys that aren't even buying from dispensaries yet, you know, like myself, or other connoisseur, like rosin connoisseur guys that, like, you know, like Slurmmm's only going to drop in the legal stores now, so we got to go there. And I'm hoping to start like building a scene there where you go into the dispensary and you have like the options that you would in Cali. You know, that's a long way away.
No, I love it, man. I love that concept. And the thing is that the market is there. You know it's there. I know it's there. It's just the Deloitte's in Canada, when they went out and polled, and when they look at what's being bought in the retail stores, they go, oh, well, there's no real market for a cold cured rosin. It's like, no, like, you just don't know. So like, it takes individuals like you to know that, hey, listen, it might not show in the purchasing metrics at the retail stores, but if I put it there, the people who aren't buying in those retail stores, they're gonna come get it. And I think that it takes that leap of faith, and you'll have that support. You know, guys like you, guys like Kind, who have, you know, put their names out there and are known for quality. Like, those guys are going to, like yourselves, are going to be able to bring those individuals like myself, where I'm driving home and I know that there's a gram of Slurmmm in that store, and I'm feeling like I want some variety and I don't have enough on my dab table, and I can just pull over and it's right there. Oh man, like that changes things. That takes me into that store. So
exactly, yeah, that's the dream, man.
Yeah, I think that's what it's about, and I think it's going to take, you know, you guys are trailblazers, and like, you know, you guys are real ones who are really doing it in the legacy, who are really about it, and these are the kind of people I'm trying to prop up. And you know, there's so many large companies that, instead of listening to you guys or partnering with someone like yourselves, they hire, you know, an overpaid young marketing team with degrees to create some brand that will resonate with cannabis consumers. And guess what? That fails. And all the brands that I think are out right now that do not have connection to the legacy space, I don't think there's going to be that many that are going to be around in 5 years, or that any cannabis consumer in the rec space would remember. So I think
I agree. I think that transition does happen with people just slowly seeing a jar that they want from the legal market. You know, they cop that and just kind of add it to their collection, sort of thing, right? Because yeah, like you said, it's a very niche market of real ones, and we're not fooled by your just smoke and mirrors and BS. Like, we all see through that just right away. You know, we go to the stuff that we just kind of known from the legacy market that is tried and true, right? Because, man, again, won't call anyone out. I hate to say it. I haven't been in a store for a while, but there was quite a bit where, like, it's like, your finest live rosin, please, and you just look at it and it's like, oh my god, dude. Actually, like,
well, some people are even like, what is rosin?
Yeah, like a funny
like,
story. So
resin.
Like, one of our suits, our operations manager, he just got a proxy. Again, I know it's not a torch, but he's starting somewhere. But so gave him some little Percy jars. And then he went out and again, I won't name them, but he bought what was supposed to be the most expensive at the spot there. And he came in today and like showed it to me, and he was so excited because like we were competing with that price point. I'm just like, yeah, man, I know. That's what I'm trying to tell you, dude. That's what we're doing. Like, you're a part of this. Like, you're making this happen, man.
You're here with us. We're doing
Yeah. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah. Dude, that's so cool. That's so cool. So,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say with the direct delivery too, like BC's changing the game a bit, allowing for direct store sales, right? So that means that you can like there's a bit more exclusivity like that can be involved in this. Like we could start thinking about ice water hash drops because now I can guarantee that it's going to get to the store, you know, in the state that it should, and that store is going to be able to like handle that product. So we're
yeah, we can educate store owners too. Like, I don't know if everybody knows, but up until pretty recently, in order to get to market, you would basically have to sell to the province, the BCLDB, and you know they don't know anything about live rosin or connoisseur products. So they basically just take a random guess order. They're like, sure, we'll try this many, and then they put it live, and then the stores are able to buy it, and we wouldn't even know what stores ended up with the product. But recently, they just started direct to retail. So now, as a processor, we'll be allowed to sell directly to stores. But the great part is that means we can hit the pavement, talk to store owners, we can educate them on the product, you know, show them why it's so great, give them a dab. And, you know, we can make sure, like Arca said, that the supply chain is proper, right? We get things coming in a timely fashion because we skip that BCLDB distribution hub, right? Doesn't have to sit
everything. I didn't realize that it was to that point where you could, you know, take the melt to Sunrise and have a melt drop at Sunrise. Like that.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's it. Yeah. So pretty excited about that. That's a huge step. People don't realize that. It is a really big step. So like things are happening fast. It's not perfect.
That's gonna help us build culture more than anything.
Agreed. Yeah, it's the biggest thing I think to happen for the rosin community on the legal market a bit. Because again, like our voice was just not heard before that. We have to just take a chance through the province, and who knows if they're just kind of silencing us without even telling us to, right?
Well, also, I mean, in Alberta, the way that it would work would be if everybody wanted it and there was only so much of it, everybody would get 1 gram, and that's not how you want to do that. You'd want to have, you know, all in one central location and be like, you know, let's capitalize. This is something special. Come here and get it. That's how it's done all over North America or all over the U.S. So I think that's really cool. I'm really excited to see how that works for you guys.
Yeah, and we can also support our friends who've been store owners since forever. You know, instead of giving some of that profit to the liquor board. You know,
and fuck the BCLDB.
Straight up. All the distribution. Like, I mean, when I explain how distribution works to my friends in the US, they can't believe it. They do not believe you know, that we basically have the DMV as our distro for our store. like that's how I explain it. Like when it's really quick, they're like, quickly tell me how Canada works. I'm like, okay, there's one distro and it's the DMV.
Take your ticket away to line, man.
I'll have to call the DMV and buy the weed from the DMV, but nobody who uses weed is allowed to work at that DMV.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Yeah. So, I think they thought they were going to ice us all out, you know, when they launched. They're just like, corporate, we're taking over. And then real quick, they just ran themselves in a hole and they're like, all right, select industry guys come. And then they're realizing, you know, you need a lot of us for this to work, man.
Not to mention, like, the BC cannabis stores straight up, like, sewering and undercutting, like, the mom and pop shops. And, like, you know, opening up across the street and, like, taking literally, like, 60-70% of the revenue. Because they're just undercutting across the street because they can't. And like, you know, there's all these limitations for small store owners and a lot of them are struggling. And, you know, I feel like this type of thing.
For the first 3 years, the only way that you could, as a rec consumer, get direct to your door retail was to buy from the wholesaler that sold to the retailers.
Yeah.
The province could deliver to your door.
Yeah.
through an online sales portal, but no retail store was allowed.
They're just trying to ice us all out, man.
You can't make this shit up. It's literally like, oh, that's not fair. It's not even kind of not fair.
Yeah, it's just blatantly not fair. Yeah, just robbery.
All this ties into the corporate agenda of mids I'm talking about,
the
whole thing.
100%. I mean, I think that it's unfortunate, but there's an evolutionary period that has to take place over a number of years before we get to that fruity beer era of legal cannabis, because we're not there yet. And when we were all coming up, like there was no smoochies, like there was no fruity beers with cartoons on them and stuff. Like there were 5 beers, and then you went to Jamaica and you had a Red Stripe. Like there's 6 beer. You know what I mean? So I think that I don't think it's going to be as long as alcohol, but I do think that I feel like we're all future people. I think consuming plants and like plant medicines instead of alcohols is kind of like going to be much more common in the future. But like I think it's going to take that time to develop that connoisseurship. But I think that having guys like yourselves who are bringing premium brands into the markets and staying with that brand so that it remains premium, and that's what's important. Like what's sad is when these premium brands that have been worked get lost, and then that brand value that was once sort of put onto that brand and probably paid out for that brand is just goes up in smoke because of a couple bad showings. So I commend you guys for doing what you're doing, and I think that it needs to be done. So I wanted to ask you each, as you kind of wrapped up here, one thing I always like to ask everybody is, what's one you wish you learned earlier in your career? Like if there was one thing that jumps out, either in business or if you can't think of business in hash making, that you could pass down to a young guy, coming up.
Man, I don't want to sound like cold, but I would just say be really careful who you trust. And not that you have to be like a sketch bag or anything, but like build trust with people before you trust them. Because you meet a lot of just like really nice guys, and you just kind of get into something real quick, and then all of a sudden you're just like, do I even know this guy at all? Like, or how stable is this dude? Could he maybe like have a bad day and just take me for a ride here? Like, so yeah, don't necessarily be not trusting, but like spend time getting to really know people before you give them your trust. Like I even tell people that sometimes, like I guess I've got like a sketch bag. I guess I say I'm not, but like I don't like to have people over to my house, and that just comes like from the legacy days, like. But for me, like if I let you come over to my house, that's like a really big step, like that's showing that I truly trust you. And I'll like tell people like there'll be some kind of scenario where people are coming over to my house, or like it would make sense if they came over to like grab the dog or something, and I'll just be like, honestly, like, love you, man, but like I don't know you well enough to have you over my house, but like no beef, we're cool, and like we'll get there, kind of thing. And if people aren't okay with that, then it kind of sucks. But I realize it's better than getting taken.
Most of my friends, all my friends are like that. So you got to get to the house level. Once you're in the house level, you're like blood brothers.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And then on that note, too,
good.
Yeah, when you do build that trust too, like recognize that and like take care of those people, right? Because it gets harder and harder to build as you get older.
Yeah. Arca, anything jump out for you?
Sorry, I was lost in my car.
The lesson, the one thing you wish you learned early in your career, hash making or business?
Oh, just to keep flowing. Like, because like you'll constantly have failures all the time, and like you won't know what to do sometimes, and you'll feel lost a lot. But like if you show consistent work and flow and just keep moving, it'll all work out.
No.
I guess, like, because I spent a lot of time wasted and wasting time, like wasting time wasted, but also just wasting time in general, and like getting too down and like being dwelling in that stuck place, I guess. But I'm just saying, like, keep it moving. Like,
Yeah, you're gonna get to that same point anyway. Maybe it takes you 2 weeks and you get up, or you could just be hurt and just take the first step and get there faster, right? It's gonna have a lot of setbacks in this game, especially. So don't fool yourself and plan on it and just keep moving.
And if you don't love this shit, get the fuck out.
That's what's up. That's what
I'm gonna die for this shit.
This game,
I love seeing. I love going on LinkedIn on a Monday morning and seeing so and so got a job back in financial services or in Bitcoin mining or in you know whatever the fuck they're doing now. Mushrooms is a big one. And 2 years ago, I was at a conference and they're like speaking on stage and they're like, I bleed cannabis. I'll be here forever, and you'll never take me away from this plant. I'm connected to it. And you know, and they don't use it, and they never did, and so it warms the cockles of my heart to see new industries become more popular and shiny. So that's awesome, man. Do you guys anybody that you haven't touched on that you know helped you guys on your journey, or you want to give a shout out to as we kind of wrap up here?
I feel like I did pretty good to my cannabis industry boys. Man, honestly, for me, shout out my jiu-jitsu coach, Coach Adam. He's just great dude. He always has my back, always asks me how I'm doing in life, and helps me keep my mind right so I can keep grinding. You know, it's good to have some people who have your back who aren't in the industry too, to help you stay grounded individual as well. You know, and it's easy to fall down the rabbit hole here. So yeah, shout out Coach Adam.
100%, bro. Arca?
I just shout out my moms. Thanks for giving birth to me.
Shout out. Yo, I'm going to shout out Arca's mom. Thank you for
that. I got Mrs. Lewin. She's a gem.
Appreciate you. Where is...
sorry if I missed you, by the way. Sorry if I missed, like, shouting you out instead of my mom.
That's perfect. You just covered everybody. You just had this opportunity. Oh man, it was so great to have you guys on. I really enjoyed it. Where's the best place for people to get in touch with you?
Hit us in the DMs at Slurmmm, SLURMMM.melts on Instagram. Triple M.
You heard it here, Arca, Connor. I appreciate you guys taking the time, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us.
It was
fun.
Appreciate
it. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Cheers, everybody. I hope you have a great day.